Okay, so we're officially recording. So welcome everyone to Knitting 101. We are joined today by Marley Bird, the one and only Marley Bird, our knitting expert. We have worked with Marley at favecrafts.com for as long as I've worked there, 10 years-ish. So Marley has many, many moons of experience knitting and crocheting. Today she's going to share all of her tips on how to get started knitting. This is part of our Favecraft Studio Live, our virtual crafting classes that we launched this year. So we're super excited to get our feet wet with the virtual crafting classes, and thank you all for joining us today. We are sponsored today by our friends at I Like Knitting. Marley, if you want to switch slides.
All right, there we go.
We do have an exciting offer for all of you guys today that are attending this class. So normally $47.64 is the price of a one-year membership to the I Like Knitting Club. But today we have it on sale for $11.88. It's a whole year access for I Like Knitting Club. It'll get you a one-year subscription to I Like Knitting magazine. It has nearly 100 new and exclusive patterns. So once you guys learn everything today, sign up for the magazine at I Like Knitting and you'll get, a plethora of awesome patterns that you can make using the skills that you learned today. So just a little bit more about I Like Knitting. It releases issues annually filled with designer patterns, expert tips, and like I said, nearly 100 exclusive patterns per year. The collections include 50 plus patterns for favorite projects, scarves, shawls, sweaters, socks, afghans, and more. The digital library includes full instant access to every single magazine issue, collection, pattern, and tutorial that they've ever released. So it's 6 years of knitting and 40 issues. So that's more than 700 patterns, all for free once you join the membership. The projects are professionally tech edited, so you never have to worry about there being, a mistake or an inaccurate part of the pattern. It's available digitally, so you can access your patterns at any time, anywhere. And there's 0 advertisements in the I Like Knitting magazine. Plus, there are also video tutorials and full color photographs for quick and easy learning. So today there's a link at the bottom of the screen, and we'll also be including this in the follow-up email. But if you go to this link, you can claim this deal. It's 75% off today for you guys only. So it's $11.88 for a whole year subscription. So yeah, we are sponsored today by I Like Knitting. So that's all I had for you guys for right now. I think I'm going to hand the floor over to Marley and we can get started. So I did send out a materials list today. So hopefully everyone has your supplies and we are all good to go. I am going to spotlight, I think, Marley's face.
I'm here.
Be good, Marley.
I think I'm here. I feel like I'm extreme close up. I'm like, hello, did I put my makeup on right today? Hey, everybody. So as Jenny said, welcome. We are in Knitting 101. My name is Marley Bird. I have been teaching beginner knitting for 14 years now. So it's a lot of fun for me actually to teach beginners because I feel like you work so hard to just get that simple knit stitch. And then once it starts to get flowing off your needles, you kind of have this aha moment and you feel that inspiration of I'm creating something, right? It's like Frankenstein. I've created something because it is really thrilling. We're taking general sticks, right? Whether they look like this or they're in a circular format, and we're taking string and we're making it into something pretty. Having said that, I do want to let everybody know that this class is recorded, as Jenny said, which means as I work along today, I have a general outline of what I want to make sure we get through in this Knitting 101 class. So I'm not going to say go fast, but I am going to move along knowing that you can go back and rewatch the video. And if there happens to be something that you missed, or maybe you're like, oh, what did she say there? Because you were concentrating so much on a stitch, that information will still be available to you. Okay, so there's that. The other thing is, I know a lot of us in here probably haven't learned something brand new that we've had to do and create muscle memory with in a long time. Like we probably learned to swim a long time ago, ride a bike a long time ago. I can't even think of whatever else. All that means is that we've probably forgotten what it's like to not be good at something immediately. So I want all of you to give yourself a little bit of slack, give yourself some patience, and know that it's not going to be perfect at first. I promise it's not. And the biggest thing I need you to do for me is ignore the fact that it might not look perfect here at the start And know that you can always go back, restart later on, and continue on. We all have to begin somewhere, right? We all started kindergarten coloring outside of the lines, and eventually we get to where it's something beautiful. So we are going to give ourselves some grace, some patience, and understand that as we're working along with these stitches and we practice and we create the muscle memory in our hands, one day you're going to wake up, pick up your knitting, and you're just going to start knitting. You're going to be like, oh, when did I start holding the yarn like that? When did I start holding my needles like that? It's just going to become a natural rhythm. Okay. All right. So having said that, Jenny did mention that you have your materials list. I know I asked you to get some lighter colored yarn. So I have some just thicker yarn here so you can see it on camera. I asked you to get some needles, and I don't know if I specified straight or circulars. Doesn't really matter either way. I'm going to show you both so that way you have a choice. But this is a knitting needle, everybody. Okay, so you have a point and you have an end, or if you're looking at circulars, they just happen to be joined with a cord at the end. So these circulars, they are just like two straight needles. Sorry, they're just like two straight needles. They just happen to be joined right down here at the end. See what I mean? So we can use the circulars to work circularly, or we can use them as straight needles. So we're going to show you how to use them as straight needles today. In case that's something you want to do, it's really great, especially if you have arthritis or you don't want to hold some things that are really heavy and create a lot of weight on your wrist, as that happens with the straight needles a lot. So you have your needles, you have your yarn. I did mention a tapestry needle. This is a bent tip tapestry needle. All this is used for is to weave in your ends. So if you're going to make a project, you have to at some point weave in your ends later. That's what this is for. So if you don't have it here in class today, no problem. You can always pick up one of those later on. The other thing, you want to make sure you have a good pair of scissors. And here is a pro tip. Add a pom-pom to your scissors. You will not lose them. I put these right in my jar, and I always know where my scissors are. And then have a good instructor. So hopefully I can fill that need for you. We are going to get started with a cast on called the knitted cast on. Now, having said that, y'all, there are a lot of different cast ons out there in the world. So this is not the one and only cast on available to you, but this is a great cast on to start beginners on because it transitions very seamlessly to the knit stitch. Okay, so that's sort of my disclaimer of don't be like, well, Marley said I have to start with this. That's not the case. I'm just starting you with this as we begin. As you progress in your knitting career, you will learn a lot of other cast-ons, and it'll be it's fun to learn all the others. All right, so Jenny, I'm going to have you switch over to my hands. Make sure everybody can see that before I go forward. And I think here we are. All right, so I'm going to make sure that is not muted. Can everybody still hear me? I want to make sure everybody can still hear me. All right. Pretty sure you can. Sweet. All right, so I have my yarn right here, and this is a little tiny swatch I have worked up. So what I've done here is I cast on stitches, and that's all that means is I put loops on my needle so they can be worked into. And then I've began knitting. And so every single row here, I just knit. When I got to the end, I bound off stitches. That's where you have to essentially link one stitch to the next one over, and it makes it so that everything finishes. And so I've just created this little tiny piece. All right, so this is going to be our little goal swatch today. All right, the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to start with my circulars, and we're going to create a slip knot. Now you want to make sure you always leave a tail that's long enough to weave in later, you guys. Okay, so we have our tail. I want to make sure I leave at least 4 to 6 inches as far as a tail from where I put my slip knot. So to create a slip knot, you place the yarn tail in the palm of your hand, take your working yarn, wrap it around your forefinger and middle finger, and come back up. Cross that over. Can you see how I have a crossover? Rotate my hand, go underneath this front loop, grab that back loop and pull it off. And I've created a slip knot. I'll do that one more time. So I have the tail in the palm of my hand, take my working yarn, wrap it around my forefinger and middle finger, bring it back to the top and cross over. Rotate my hand, go underneath the front loop, grab that back loop, take my fingers out, and I have a nice little slip knot right there. Everybody see that? Now, this is not the only way you can make a slip knot, but it's the easiest way for me to teach people. take your knitting needle, place it into that slip knot. And did you see I just separated the legs of the yarn? Is my needle close enough to the camera, Jenny? Everything look good? Okay, good.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Keep an eye on. We are getting some questions about left-handed knitters, so anytime you can share any tips as you go for left-handed knitters.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in there right now and say, everybody, knitting, we use both hands. So whether you're right-handed or left-handed, you can take this class. Okay, everybody is all thumbs at the start here. So whether you're gonna hold your yarn over here in your right hand or you're gonna hold your yarn in the left hand, the movement is the same. Okay, so even though you're left-handed, I want you to put that slip knot on your needle, hold that needle in your left hand. Okay, so here we go. This stitch right here, that slip knot counts as a stitch. Now that's different. If you're a crocheter, you're like, but the first slip knot on your hook never counts. You're correct. But in knitting, it counts. So that counts as a stitch unless a pattern tells you otherwise. What I want you to do is I want you to take the other needle, and I'm trying to think here. I'm going to hold my needle like, so if this were crossways, right to left, I'm going to I hold it sort of diagonal to myself. And I take my right hand needle and I'm going to go from the left side and through that loop that's on my needle. Okay, can you see? I just put my needle through that loop we put on there. Now I let go of my needles and I grasp both needles here when I'm going to hold my yarn with my right hand. So I have my needles like so. I take my yarn. I'm going to go underneath that needle, up and around with that yarn. Can you see that? Here is our goal, everybody. We're going to take this loop that we just wrapped around our right hand needle and pull it through that left hand needle. So in order to do that, we have to keep tension on this yarn and at the same time, make sure this stitch doesn't fall off. So what I like to do is I usually will grasp the yarn and hold it in my hand in such a way that I can keep tension. And then I'm just going to take my needle and pull my needle back through that stitch I was in, all the while pulling that loop through. Once I've done that, I extend that loop. I'll take my left hand needle, swivel around and scoop it up and put it back on my left hand needle. All right, I'm gonna do this again. Now I have 2 stitches. Okay, you ready? I'm gonna go into the loop, take my yarn, wrap it around my right hand needle. Now I'm going to take that right hand needle and that wrap that I just did and pull those through that loop. See, I'm just pulling them through that loop. Can you guys see that? All right. So if I'm just pulling them through that loop, see, there's that wrap I just did. Now I'm going to extend my right hand needle, swivel my left hand needle and scoop up that stitch. And now I have 3 stitches. So I go in, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. Now, if you guys are feeling like this is really iffy and it's like, I'm never going to control these needles, things seem a little bit haywire, you are in a perfect place. That is exactly how everybody feels here at the start. And that's okay. We're going to practice this. So just keep kind of saying to yourself.
A few people are asking if you can do that again.
Yep.
He's asking, can you do it again? Nancy wants to know, what is the name of this cast on? I think it's just cast on, right?
Okay,
Riley?
so this is a knitted cast on. And you'll notice I'm just repeating the same thing over and over. So I go in, around, out, extend, swivel, scoop. I'm just going to keep repeating this. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. You would continue doing this until you have the number of stitches cast on you want. Now I'm going to start this over, y'all. Here we go. I'm going to take off my needles. take off my stitches from my needle. Easy come, easy go, no problem. Okay. Slip knot. The tail is in the palm of my hand. Take the working yarn, wrap it around my forefinger and my middle finger, and I come up and cross over. Rotate my hand over, go underneath the front loop, grab the back loop and off. I have a slip knot. I take that slip knot and place it on my needle. Now my goal is to create a knit stitch for a knitted cast on through the loop I've already cast on. Okay, so I have that loop cast on. So here we go. I'm going to take my right hand needle, go into that loop, going from left to right, just into the loop. Don't overthink it. It's just a circle. I'm just putting my needle right into that circle. Now I'm going to take this yarn that's attached to my yarn ball. I'm going to yarn around that needle that I stuck through the circle. Now, why did I wrap that yarn around that needle? Well, that's because I want that yarn to come through that hole, right? So if this were big enough, I could have taken my fingers and go in there and just grab that yarn and pull it through, right? But it's not big enough. We have these needles to help us here. So what I'm going to do is hold tension on the yarn that's wrapped. I kind of bring my needle down until I can swivel it through that circle that I went into. All right.
Really,
so
someone's
here I am.
asking, how tight do you pull each one?
Not very tight here at the start. We're just going to keep things really nice and relaxed. If you make them too tight, you'll never be able to get into them. So you're right here.
And then asking, how much tension should we have for the loops we are making? Should it be somewhat loose or more tightened on the needle?
As long as you're able to get into them and they can move on the needle, that's what you want. If they're so tight you can't move them on the needle, then that's not going to work. But if they're so loose that they're just falling right off the needle, that's not going to work. All right, so I've pulled this through, right? Yeah. But now I want this stitch I've pulled through to get onto my left-hand needle, right? It's like get in my belly. All right, so we're going to do that. We're going to extend that loop that we just pulled out. And I'm not going to take my left-hand needle and just poke it in there, right? I don't want to poke. I want to swivel and scoop at it. And that's important because that twist, that stitch, and as it places it on the needle, it's in the correct position. Now you will notice I don't tighten this one up at the start because it's easier for me to get into it the next one. So I do all of that all over again. It's the same deal. So I'm not going into this one because now I have this one. It's like, all right, I'm at the tip of your needle. I'm your huckleberry. Let's make this happen. We're going to take our right hand needle, go into that stitch. It's just a big circle. I'm just going into that circle. I take my working yarn. I wrap it around. Notice I'm not going like this. I'm going underneath and going up. Now I want to keep tension on that wrap. Okay, that's where a lot of beginner knitters will mess up, is they don't keep that tension there. You keep that tension and then pull your right hand needle down slowly to where you can, I'm going to go like this. Can you see how it's just popping right out of that circle? All right, so we went into the circle, we wrapped around, we came out, we extend, we swivel, and we scoop. Put it on. Then we repeat. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. And you will notice every time I put it back on after my scoop, I'm not tightening up like that because then that's too difficult to get into, right? I keep it nice and loose. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. Now, the great thing here, you guys, you don't really know this yet if you have never knit before, is you are doing a knit stitch. That there, what I just did is a knit stitch, but we're taking it to another level by extending, swivel, and scooping by doing a knitted cast on. So these are stitches that are knits and they're getting cast on. So you are learning to knit and cast on at the same time, you guys, which is really, really an important thing because it'll be an easy transition to go into the actual knit. Now, what I need you to do is I need you to get 10 stitches on your needle. And what you will do here, as far as counting, as they're resting on your needle, you just count each loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I need you to get 10 stitches. Okay, and that's basically what they're going to look like. Now, this is something that you can always go back and practice after this class is over. I actually highly recommend that. Grab your yarn and needles and start back at the very beginning with the cast on, because it's usually the first thing you forget after you start knitting because you did it so long ago. Now, I have got to move on to the next stitch, but the good news is if you are not ready for that, you can still continue to cast on because it'll help you with the next stitch also. Once you get your 10 stitches cast on, we're ready to begin knitting, okay? So here we go. I'm going to go into the stitch. Oh, that looks familiar. I'm going to wrap my needle. Oh, that looks familiar. I'm going to pull that stitch through the one on my other needle. Oh, that looks familiar. Well, Marley, you just said we're doing something new. Well, we are. Now, that stitch right there that we went into, we are going to push it off the porch. Boom. Okay, you see that? Now I have one stitch over here on my right hand needle. Now the first thing knitters will want to do, beginner knitters, is they'll want to separate their needles and go like this. Do not do that. Always keep your needles in this position at a really nice, comfortable position, okay? You do not want them to separate like this, just like that.
Marley, a few people are lost. I know this is a beginner class and it will be overwhelming, but a few people are lost and someone's still on a Slipknot. So I don't know if you want to try.
The best thing I could do at this point is make sure that they go back and watch the replay. Like there's lots of help. There's lots of help there. All right. So once you have this stitch over here, you guys, with this right hand needle, it's time that we go to the next stitch on our left hand needle. So just like before, I'm going to go into that loop. See that? I'm just going to go into that loop. I yarn over my right hand needle. Bring that yarn over through. You see that? Can everybody see that? Like, you see what I'm doing here when I yarn that over? I've went into this big hole, so I'm just bringing it through. Now, that stitch right there, I'm going to push it off the porch. Into the next one, around the needle, come out, and then push that stitch off the porch. All right, so here's my words. Here's usually what I'll say. Go in the front door, go around the corner, come out the window, jump off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, out the window, off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, through the window, off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, through the window, off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, through the window, off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, through the window, off the porch. One more left. In the front door, around the corner, through the window, off the porch. Now my left hand needle is empty and all of the stitches are on my right hand needle. So what I'll do is I straighten my stitches out because they want to curl on you. So I just kind of straighten them. Take this needle and place it in your left hand. You should be looking at the back side of a knit stitch, which makes it look like you have all these little purl bumps. And you're ready to start again. So just like you did before, you take your right hand needle and going into this first stitch here, you're going to begin knitting. Now, here's going to be the very first like cure to a mistake that a lot of beginner knitters make. This first stitch sometimes will look really loose on them. So they're like, oh, I want to tighten that up. So they'll take their yarn and they go like this. And they're like, oh yeah, that looks tighter. That looks really good. Okay, that's awesome. But do you notice now I no longer have that bump there. I look like I have 2 loops, right? And if I look like I have 2 loops and I treat those as 2 loops, I'm going to get an extra stitch. So beginner knitters will start to knit along. They're like, I'm getting all these extra stitches I don't understand. And it all is the culprit of right here of just wanting your work to look nice and tidy. So you pull this up. Don't worry about this first stitch. As time goes on, it will be nice and neat and you'll find different ways to make that stitch a little bit nicer for you. But you do not want to go like this. You want to make sure, especially when you're doing what this is called garter stitch. You want to make sure you see that purl bump, okay? So you want that purl bump there. The other thing is, as we're knitting along here, our yarn is going to be behind our needles, okay? We didn't pay much attention to it for the first couple, for our cast on in our first row. But as we go down this row, it's going to be very important we always keep our yarn behind our needles. So one of the questions people will say then, well, Marley, if I'm not going to do this to tighten up that stitch, how do I tighten that stitch up? Well, I'm going to show you. Here we go. So I'm going to show you that, and we're still just going to knit down the row. So the only thing I'm showing you is how to tighten that stitch. We're doing everything else the same. I'm going to go into the stitch just like I did before. Now notice I didn't pick up the purl bump. I just pick up the loop that's on my needle. Okay, so I know beginners get stuck there because they see that bump there and they get confused. It's only that circle that's on your needle. You're going to go into that. So I went in the front door, around the corner, out the window, and I'm going to jump off the porch and watch what I do. I'm going to wiggle my needle and kind of tug my yarn, my working yarn, and it tightens up the stitch below. So the only way I know how to say it, you wiggle your needle and tug your yarn and it tightens up the stitch below. So you give it a little wiggle and a little tug. I said that in class once and there was a guy in class and he was like, so just to tighten it up, I give a little wiggle and a little tug. I said, that's right. That's what you do, a wiggle and a tug. All right. So that's going to tighten up that stitch. It's going to be beautiful. Then you just carry on. You just go in from the left to the right in the front door, around the corner, out the window, and off the porch. Now, as you are working, you're going to be like crazy here at the start. You'll be like, I don't know how to hold my needles. I don't know how to hold my yarn. And you're right. You don't really know how to hold it yet. You're going to find a way that works for you. I like to wrap my yarn around my pinky finger and hold it like this, but not everybody holds it like that. I have friends who hold it just like this. I have friends who hold it like this. So you will find a way that works for you. So I always hesitate telling beginners how they should hold the yarn. You need to find a way that works for you to hold that tension. The other thing is these stitches here, you guys, on your left-hand needle and these stitches on your right-hand needle. You want to make sure as you're creating them, you're always bringing them back down here to the size of the needle. Don't leave them up here at the tip. If you do that, your stitches are going to be too small, okay? Because they're never going to be the correct size, which is down here at this base, the barrel of the needle. So you want to make sure that your stitches are always getting back to the barrel size of the needle. The taper of the needle is there really to help you get into that circle and get some extra space. The other thing here is that we don't get to control a lot of different things in life, but we do get to control our stitches. So you'll notice I always have a finger or a thumb on my stitches that are close to the tip of my needle. It's because I'm not going to let that stitch there jump off the porch until I tell it to. So I always have control of my stitches. All right, so let's do a knit stitch again. In the front door, around the corner, out the window, off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, out the window, off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, out the window, off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, out the window, off the porch.
Marley's
In.
asking, what if a loop jumps off the porch on accident? How do we recover?
Oh my gosh, then all is lost. No. So here, I'm just gonna let that one fall off. And if your yarn isn't too is not too slick, it'll just kind of be there. Don't panic. Just grab it and put it back on your needle. Okay. Just grab it and put it back on your needle. You see that? So it jumped off. You're like, oh no, just grab it and put it back on your needle. Now, if it jumps off and it falls down several rows, that's a bigger fix. That's a different class. But for the most part, if it falls off to start just like that, just grab it and put it back on your needle so that you can knit it. All right. Now, Jenny, I know this is the time you wanted me to take a break. Do you want me to break or do you want me to keep going with this for a couple minutes?
Sure, let's take a quick bathroom break. We'll just pause for, a minute or two.
Okay.
Let people stretch their legs.
Okay. Do you want me to go back and put them on hold? Okay.
Sure, yeah, if you want to put up the...
All right, so what I want you guys, if you're not going to do a bathroom break, just keep knitting. Just keep doing what I told you. This is all we're doing, okay? Just keep knitting. All right, so I'm going to do the share screen.
Just keep knitting.
And there we go. Does it pop up?
All right, so yeah, just one more time, and this is helpful. I know a few people joined us late, but our class today is sponsored by I Like Knitting, which is a digital magazine that offers hundreds and hundreds of digital knitting patterns that you should be able to complete, at least some of them, using your skills that you're learning today in the class. So normally it's almost $50 for a one-year membership to I Like Knitting. Today, for you guys only, this exclusive deal, you can get a whole year subscription for just $11.88. So there's a URL at the bottom of the screen to go claim that deal. It'll get you a one-year membership to the Gold Club of I Like Knitting, which 75% off the normal price. The holidays are coming. This would make a great gift. You can gift yourself this wonderful gift of free patterns, or not free patterns, but discounted patterns, or you can gift it to someone in your life. If someone wants to learn how to knit with you, you can get them a one-year membership to the I Like Knitting digital magazine, and you can learn to knit along with your friends. So the URL is here to claim your gift. It's a great deal. If anyone has any questions about the I Like Knitting subscription, please post them in the Q&A box, and we will get an answer for you.
Awesome.
I know that this is a hard skill to learn. I actually, I'm not an expert knitter myself. I did learn to knit back in high school, so a few years ago. I made a scarf, and it was really fun. It was a lot easier for me to learn to knit than crochet. So for everyone that's joining us today, thank you so much for joining. We're halfway through our class. It is challenging at first. It's just like, I have a one-year-old at home, and she's just learning to walk, and it's hard at first. You're going to fall, you're going to get frustrated, but thank you for signing up and learning with us today. Marley's an excellent teacher, and the best words of advice that she has is just to practice, practice, practice. So you're not going to be an expert on day one, but don't give up. I mean, the fact that you're here learning to knit with us today is a wonderful first step. So practice.
Very well said.
Everything. And what did you say, Marley?
That's very well said. That's exactly right. It's
Yeah.
exactly right. It's all about muscle memory, coming back and letting your hands understand what you're supposed to do as you're holding those needles, as you're holding that yarn. I mean, you're doing something completely new. Your brain and your eyes are like, just do it, hands. And your hands are like, it's like they just woke up from a nap. They're like, huh, you want me to what? And they just got to have some time to get used to it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
All right, I think we can go back to the class and continue on with the lesson.
Right. Here I am, y'all.
Perfect.
All right, so I've just worked up a couple extra rows. Again, I've done nothing new here. We did the knitted cast on, and then we've just been knitting every single row. And I think it's important I point out that when you knit every single row and you're working flat, this is called knitting flat, where you turn your work back and forth, then you create what is called garter stitch, okay? Because people will say, well, Marley, if I'm not doing purls, why do I see purl bumps? Well, the answer to that is because the back side of a knit stitch is a purl bump. So as I am knitting these stitches here, you see how they look like V's right underneath the loop that's on my needle? You see how those look like V's? Those are knit stitches. So on the back of that knit stitch, of course I'm going to see a purl bump. It's just like if this was a quarter and I'm looking at the heads, but I know on the flip side is going to be tails. It's the same thing. If I'm looking at a knit, I know on the opposite side is going to be a purl. Okay, so you are knitting every single row, which is why when you turn your work and you see those bumps, those are purl bumps, but you're getting those because that's the back side of the knit row you just completed. Okay, so because I've talked
we
about,
do have a quick question.
Sure.
Elena's saying that her stitches seem to be getting tighter and she's not trying to do that. So what is she doing wrong?
Okay, so as you're going along, one thing that a lot of people will do is one, they'll keep the stitches down here at the tip of the needle so that their stitches aren't getting up here to where they get to be the right size. Or as they're going, they're really holding really super tight. They'll get the stitch over here and they're doing the wiggle and tug after every stitch. And you do not want to do that. Only that first stitch, okay? All the other ones, we want to keep those nice and relaxed. All right, so as you're knitting, when that stitch jumps off the porch and you have your resulting stitch over here, do not pull it tight. Can you see right there? Okay, look, I just knit it. If I pull it tight, watch that yarn. Watch how tight it gets. Can you see that? Now it's like super tight around that needle and it's hard to get into. We want to have it nice and relaxed and have that stitch be the same size as our needle. Okay? So I'm going to unknit those and go back to the start here.
Erin is also wondering, and maybe you'll be getting to this shortly, but she's asking, when the stitches all get on the right needle, do we turn our work?
Yeah, so right here, all my stitches are on my right hand needle. So I take my right hand needle, put it in my left hand, and that turns my work. So now I'm looking at the back side of what I just did. Okay, can you guys see that? All right, so the first thing here I want to talk about, so here's where I was going. You've learned the knitted cast on, you've learned the knit stitch, we've learned how to tighten up that first stitch, but there's another mistake some people will accidentally do, which is create an accidental yarn over, which increases. So I want to show you how to correct that. So here we go. Should I hold the yarn in my left hand this time and show you guys Continental? So it's the same thing. I'm holding the yarn just in a different hand, but you're going to watch it's the same motion. I'm still going in the front door. I'm still going around the corner. You see that? I'm still coming out the window and I'm still jumping off the porch and I can still wiggle and tug, you know, everything is the same. I'm just holding the yarn in the opposite hand. So my yarn is behind my needles. I go in the front door, around the corner. See, it's around the corner, through the window, off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, through the window, off the porch. Now, you guys hear me say my yarn is behind my needles, and that's important. As you knit, your yarn is behind your needles. But what if you picked up your work and you forgot that I had said that? And so you have your yarn up front here and you're like, okay, so I go in the front door, I go around the corner and I come out the window and off. You're like, wait a minute. Now I have this big sort of loop just resting on my needle. I have a hole. What is going on? Oh, I'm sure everything's fine. I'm just going to continue on. Well, what happened here, when your yarn was in front and you brought it back to knit, you brought that yarn over top of the needle and you created what's called a yarn over. Congratulations, you're an advanced knitter because that's how you create lace, all right? So this yarn over there is how you get lace. That's how you get those nice big holes in lace, like with purposeful yarn overs. But when we're doing garter stitch like this, we don't want that. So I'm gonna leave that there and pretend that we didn't see it until the next row, okay? So I'm gonna leave that there and I'm just gonna keep going. So I'm gonna yarn around my needle and off, and I'm just knitting along. I'm so happy. Let's do another one where I accidentally, so I bring it to the front. I was like, oh, I'm just knitting. I want you to see this. So it's in front. I'm accidentally have it in front. So I'm bringing it back to the back so I can yarn over. my needle, come out and off. Look, I've created another one there. Okay.
I think you might be answering this, but Angela asked what happens if you go to the back. Is that similar to what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so it's the same, like if it's in back, that's what we want. If our yarn is in front and we are knitting, that's how we get these accidental yarn overs. Okay, so now I've created to the end. I put my work, I'm like, okay, this looks great. And I'm just like, what is that? Why do I look like I have holes? Why does it look like there's just this strand of yarn resting on my needle? Well, the answer is because there's a strand of yarn resting on your needle. So what you don't want to do is knit that strand of yarn if this is what we're creating, because you're just going to get a hole and you're going to get an extra stitch wherever there is. Oops, sorry, hold on a second. I turned off my phone, but apparently that's not working. Okay, so if you were to just knit that strand of yarn, you'd get a hole and you get an extra stitch. So what we're going to do, I'm going to turn my work and I'm like, okay, I can get rid of those. If you don't have a whole bunch of them in a row, this is how easy it is just to get rid of them. You will go ahead and knit over to where that strand of yarn is. Okay. So I'm just knitting along and I'm like, do. And this is like how funny it looks. You're like, something doesn't look right there. All right. So this one looks right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll knit that one. All right, I'll knit that one. But now I have this. What is that, right? Well, this is what I want you to do. I want you to make it jump off the porch and get rid of it. Boom, it goes away. It's a little bit big, but it goes away. You're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna keep going. So you keep going. You just knit and you're going along. And you're going along and you're like, okay, there's another one of those suckers. I'm just gonna make it fall off the porch. So you do that. You're like, all right, well, that's gone now. So you knit some more and you get to the end of the row. And what you'll notice is where you drop those off, you might have a little bit of bigger stitches there, but not abnormally big, as long as you just had like a couple of those yarn overs. If it was a whole row of yarn overs, that's a different situation. But for the most part,
Elaine is wondering, is it common for a beginner to have spaces between their rows? My bumps are not neatly lined up like yours.
Yes, it could be that she has her yarn and her needles aren't the right matches together or whatever, but absolutely, yeah, that's perfectly normal. So now we have all of those extra loops that we had on our needles are gone. And all we had to do was let them jump off the porch, right? So you don't have to freak out if you accidentally get one of those yarn overs now. You know how to get rid of it. All right, so that's another common beginner mistake. So we've learned so far that beginners usually will pull this up and create 2 stitches. We've learned that beginners will sometimes bring the yarn to the front and then go to knit with it, so they create that yarn over. We've also learned that beginners will tend to knit and then separate their needles like this to try and tighten things, and we do not do any of those things, all right? So honestly, you guys, those are some of the #1 things that beginner knitting teachers will forget to tell beginners, and that makes people want to stop knitting because they don't know how to fix these mistakes. Here's the next one. All right, so I'm going to show you. As I'm doing this, I'm going to switch over to the circular so you guys can see how these circulars work, because it's going to be the same way as the straights. We're just going to, it's just as if these straight needles happen to be attached at the end with a cord. All right, so I'm going to put those aside, put these on here. All right, so now I have stitches on my needle. This is just as if I had just finished knitting. I put that needle over here. Even though it's attached, it's the same motion. It was here, I put it over here. And this is what will sometimes happen. Okay, I'm gonna hold this time doing Continental again. Somebody will go to knit and they'll be knitting along, just, you know, happy-go-lucky, really thrilled, everything's awesome. And then somebody will text them and they're like, oh, I want to tell them that I'm knitting. So they drop their knitting and they pick up their little texting thing, right? And then they start texting. And then they put that down and they go to pick this up. They're like, where was I? And they're like, all right, that looks right. I'll just start right here. So they're like, okay, I want to make sure my yarn's in the back. Okay, what do I do? All right, so I'm going to start knitting. I want you to see what happens. So what you don't really know is that I just picked up my work the wrong way. And I finished knitting. I'm like, okay, cool. So now I just put this over here. but I noticed, well, wait a second, that doesn't look even. All of a sudden I look like I have too many over here. I have a big gap right there and not enough. What did I do wrong? Well, the problem here is that when I picked up and started knitting, did you notice my yarn was already over here on my left-hand needle? It wasn't on my right-hand needle. So I picked it up backwards. So I turned my work and went backwards. Here is the bad news. There's no way to fix this other than ripping out. All right, so I'm going to show you how to rip this out by using your needles because it's just one row. Here we go. You see, you have a stitch on your right-hand needle and there's a stitch below that right-hand needle. So this is the daughter, this is the mother. Take your needle here. Notice it's in my right hand. Take your left-hand needle and stick it right into the mother. And then let the daughter fall off the porch and then pull it apart. Now that mother is back on your left-hand needle. So I'm going to do this again. I usually will pull my fabric like so I can really get to see where that mother is. Do you see this? So there's the daughter on my right-hand needle. Here's the mother. I'm going to take my left-hand needle, stick it right into the mother, and let the daughter fall off. There's the mother. I'm sorry. There's the daughter. There's the mother. Stick it into the mother, fall off the porch. I'm going to get this to where I get over to where this hole is, okay? Here's the daughter. Here's the mother. I'm going to stick my left-hand needle in the mother, fall off the porch. Into the mother, fall off the porch. Now I'm like, okay, I'm where my hole was. So what I needed to do, this is where I picked it up and started knitting. This is where my yarn's on my left-hand needle. The other clue here is if I were to go into the mother of this stitch, the yarn right here, how do I explain this? If I were to go further, I would be losing stitches versus this is where my yarn is. This is where my active yarn is. I wanted to get back to where my active yarn was, okay? We've reached that stitch. I can see it's on my left-hand needle, but when we knit, we know that we're knitting off of our left-hand needle onto our right-hand needle. So if it's mid-row, if you happen to throw your work down and you pick it back up, make sure your yarn is attached to the right-hand needle before you start knitting. Does this make sense? So if you were to drop this down and pick this back up, make sure your yarn is on your right-hand needle before you start knitting. Now, the number one thing I usually tell my beginner knitters in order to prevent this is never put your work down mid-row. You'll hear people joke all the time, guys, as you're now in the knitting community, that people will be like, hold on, let me finish this row. This is why. You want to finish the row because now if I put it down, it doesn't really matter. Like I pick it up, I'm like, okay, now I know where I am because my yarn, I'm picking it up. Nothing is over here, right? It's not a mid-row because that's where it is. But as I start knitting, it's going to be over here. Does that make sense? Am I making sense there? And that is a huge tip because a lot of beginners will do that. And then they get that hole. One side is wonky. They're like, I just can't knit. And when in reality, it was just a simple mistake. It was a simple mistake. So now you know how to tink. All right. So what we just did there by going into the mother, you guys, that's called tinking. It's knitting backwards. So I could tink still right here. Like I say, I found a mistake over there. I just pull those stitches apart, find the mother, go into the mother, and let the daughter fall off. Can you see that? This is called unknitting.
Chris is asking a similar question. If you have the yarn over done wrong and you drop it off, does it make your stitch count wrong for the pattern?
No, because you should have never had that yarn over to begin with. So if you kept it in play, your stitch count would be off. But if you just drop it off, it was never meant to be there, right? So you guys can see here, I've literally just tinked, which is knit spelled backwards, that entire row. So I just,
oh, that's so
clever. I just unknit that whole row. All right, so now you've just learned another way to fix mistakes. This is one of the big ones. Here's something else I want to show you because this is going to happen. All right, guys, yarn will sometimes come and it'll have a knot in it. You see that? Like it's a knot in a brand new ball. You guys see that? First thing I want to tell you, never knit with a knot in your yarn. You always want to cut this out and start at a new, start a new strand of yarn. Never trust a knot. You don't want a knot in your knitting, okay? So the reason I'm pointing that out is twofold. I'm going to show you how to join a new ball of yarn and at the same time a new color, because it's the same thing. So by showing you how to join a new ball of yarn, it's as if, oh, look, let me grab my trusty scissors with my pom-pom. Let's say we found a knot in our pink. So I cut my knot off, I get rid of it. And let's pretend this is pink. Like this is where I'm just going to rejoin it, right? All I do here, you guys, this is so simple. I literally just start knitting with the new ball of yarn. That's it. Now your stitches are going to be a little bit stretched out down here because there's nothing really holding them in place, but it will all fit, work out in the ends, like when you weave in your ends and stuff. But this is how easy it is. So when you want to add a new ball of yarn, whether it's the same color or a different color, you simply just start knitting with that new ball of yarn. And notice I left a nice long tail so I could weave in my tails. You guys see that? Is that helpful? I mean, to me, that's super helpful because I remember when I first learned to knit, I was ready to add a new ball of yarn. I was making a scarf and I didn't know how to do it. And I had no idea that it was literally that easy. You just start knitting with your new ball of yarn. Now I will give you another pro tip. It's always best to change to a new ball of yarn, whether you have a knot in your yarn or not. It's always best to do it at the start of a row. So even, let's say, and this makes it really easy to see the mother, right? Because see, here's the daughter, here's the mother. The mother's pink, right? So I can just let the daughters fall off and I just go into those pink stitches really easily. But let's say that I was knitting along and I found my knot right here. And I was like, oh man, now I have to cut my yarn. And you could be like, okay, I'm just going to rejoin my yarn right here. Well, now you have an end right here in the middle of your project. The best thing to do would be to tink back. You know how to tink back to the start of that row and join your yarn down here at the start of the row, just like you would have done before.
Colleen is wondering, what if you already kept knitting with a knot in the yarn? Will it be okay?
No, no, do not do it. Do not get in that habit for several reasons. One, you don't want to wear something with a knot in it because inevitably it's going to force its way to the front of the fabric. Two, you don't want to trust a knot. A knot could come undone. Then all of a sudden you have a big hole in your knitting after you put all of this work into it. And three, who wants a knot in their knitting? Like you don't want to do that. So you always want to get rid of the knot in your yarn, and knots happen, you guys. I get it. When you are working with yarn and you're like, gosh darn it, I got a knot, it happens. You just simply cut it out. You know how to fix it now. You know how to tink back to the start of your row. You know how to just simply take your knitting and just start knitting with your yarn. So whether it's a new color or not doesn't matter. I just thought it was fun to see it in a new color so you could see it easily.
Marley, real quick, someone is saying, I started with 10 stitches and now I have 12. What did I do wrong?
So it's either, if you don't have any holes in your knitting, that means you didn't have any yarn overs. It's very possible that you tried to extend up that start of the row and created 2 stitches where there was only 1, and you've created the extra stitch there. The other possibility is when you do this, sometimes people will forget to jump off the porch and they'll be like, oh, I've got to knit into that again. So then they'll find a way to knit into it a second time, and then they'll get 2 stitches. Does that make sense? So you kind of really have to pay attention to, am I jumping off the porch, in the front door, around the corner, out the window, off the porch? So there's a lot of different reasons. So without seeing her work, I can't tell her specifically why, but those are the things she needs to look at. Did she accidentally extend up? Is there a hole? That's what I would look for.
Okay, that is helpful. I just wanted to check in with time. We have about 5 minutes left.
Okay, so
in the Q&A, so I do want to make sure that we have a few minutes at the end for the unanswered questions that we haven't gotten to yet.
Perfect. So I do want to show them how to bind off, because so when you get to the end of a project, you guys, just as when we cast on stitches, so we cast on something to actually work into, now we have all these worked into, but if I just let them come off my needle, they're going to fall down like a run in a pantyhose. So you have to do what's called binding off, or Yarnspirations calls it casting off. So it's really easy. You can do this. You guys ready for this? All right. You're going to knit 2 stitches, just like you've been doing. We're just going to knit 2 stitches. But now here's where the fun begins. Notice I kind of pull my fabric down a little bit to give myself some room. All right. So I pull my fabric down. This is the second one I did. This is the first one. I'm going to take my left-hand needle. I'm going to grab that first stitch I did, and I'm going to have it jump up and over that stitch off the porch. So see, I'm bringing it up and over, and I'm letting it jump off the porch and fall off. Now it's as if this stitch is getting strangled by the stitch I just had jump over. So I'm left with 1 stitch on my right-hand needle. I will knit 1 more stitch and repeat. So I have 2 stitches, back stitch, jump up and over the front stitch. And I will tell you, I'm keeping tension on that front stitch the whole time so it doesn't go anywhere. Let it fall off, and there you go. Here's another tip, y'all. Make sure as you're doing this, you're not accidentally pulling this 1 stitch here really tight, or your bind offs will be too tight. So you really want to make sure as you are knitting these, back stitch jumps up and over the front. I always will just kind of make sure I have some wiggle room there for the stitch that's left on my right-hand needle, so it's not too tight. And you will do this all the way down the row until all of the stitches have been knit, and you'll be left with 1 loop on your right-hand needle. So I'm just going to keep going. Back, jump over the front, knit 1 more, back, jump over the front, knit 1 more, back, jump over the front, knit 1 more, back, jump over the front, down to the last stitch, back, jump over the front. So I have 1 stitch left on my right-hand needle, cut my yarn, pull that stitch out. Notice I have to weave in those ends, but that has bound off my stitches. So the last thing you would do then here is weave in all of your tails. So that's where your tapestry needle comes in handy. I usually will separate the ends, pinch them over. And then you can see the stitches here, like the shape of the stitch. So you can, let me see if I can get down here to show you. I'm gonna come, how do I wanna do this? I want you to see in a different color. So I'm gonna pop this down here. I'm just gonna come down here just so that you can see. I'm gonna follow this pink path here. So you see how this comes around, it goes underneath that bump and comes up and goes behind those yellow and comes back around. So I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna go underneath the bump and pull up, go behind the yellow, pull across, come back down the bump. You can see it comes, it does it again. It goes up the bump, behind the yellow, down the bump, and you're weaving in your ends. I usually finish this off. I will go through, I will split the fibers just like this, and then bring it so that my tail finishes down here on the side again, because I don't want any bumps or anything coming in the middle of my fabric. And you do all this on the wrong side of your fabric, so the side that is non-public. And once it's all in, you snip it and you've woven in your tail. See that?
That looks awesome, Marley.
Yeah. So I mean,
Belk is saying my binding off always finishes really tied and the project looks awful. Any idea to help?
So one thing you could do is you could use a larger needle in your right hand. So as you're knitting, knit with a larger needle and give that a try. The other thing is always make sure that that stitch that you're jumping over is always a little bit looser than what you would normally have it be. There are other stitches out or other ways to bind off too, just like there's other cast-ons, but those are the top 2 ways I would suggest. Is if you're using 9s, use a size 10 to bind off, or even larger. That's a great way to combat that. So I mean, you guys learned a lot here. All right, so let's see. You learned the knitted cast on, you learned the knit stitch, you learned how to wiggle and tug that first stitch of the row, you learned the accidental yarn over, you learned how to add a new yarn. You learned what happens if you put it down and pick it up the wrong way. You conversely learned how to tink. You learned how to bind off. You learned how to weave in your ends. You learned that this is called garter stitch when you knit every row, and it takes 2 rows to create 1 ridge of garter stitch. Those are garter stitch ridges, so that's 2 rows per ridge. You learned how to use circulars. You learned how to use straights. And the only thing left I didn't mention here is, go ahead and go back to my face, Jenny, is as you continue on in your knitting career, you might come across some teachers who will tell you you're always supposed to slip the first stitch of the row. You do not have to do that. And I actually will tell you, as a designer, unless the pattern tells you to slip that first stitch of the row, don't do it. Okay, there's a reason why the designer will put it in a pattern or will not put it in a pattern. And as beginners, there's no reason for you to slip that first stitch of the row, because you'll inevitably forget, and then something's going to look funny and you're going to get frustrated. So just keep it very simple. Keep it all in knit stitches. I will tell you guys, with everything you learned today, there is a plethora of patterns out there for you to make many different items. I know that there's a lot of stuff on the I Love Knitting website and the magazine. I have a book. It's the complete knit collection for beginners. I mean, this is a garter stitch scarf and it has color changes. So everything you learned today, you can make that scarf, right? I mean, it's very simple. Right here, that's a garter stitch hat. You can make that. That's a garter stitch cowl. You can make that. There's so many things you can do with just these little things that you learned today. So I encourage you to go back, rewatch the video, give yourself some patience, please. And if you really want to do this, I am telling you, you can do this. Practice at least 30 minutes a day. Put it down, pick it up, give yourself a chance to get that muscle memory, and it will work. There's lots of help out there. Lots of people willing to help you as beginners, as advanced knitters. I mean, we're a pretty great community, so it's one you definitely want to be a part of.
Thank you, Marley. That's awesome. Yeah. There are tons of resources, like Marley said. favecrafts.com is one place with tons of great project inspiration. We have free craft projects, plus tons of knitting patterns, plus crochet patterns, if any of you guys crochet as well. AllFreeKnitting.com is a website with thousands and thousands of free patterns. And then ILikeKnitting.com is the premium magazine subscription that I was telling you guys about earlier today. So today's class is actually sponsored by ILikeKnitting.com. So, we'd love for you guys to sign up to the magazine subscription as well. It's a great holiday gift. There are just a couple quick questions that a bunch of people have asked in the chat. So I just want to end with some of those questions. And also, everyone, we are going to be emailing a recording of today's class, so you can go back and rewatch this as many times as you need. Zoom can take up to 24 hours, depending on the length of the class, for the video to condense and, upload to my computer. So if you don't get it, as soon as we sign off, be patient. I will get the video emailed out within 24 hours to you guys. I will do it as soon as I receive it from our friends at Zoom. Okay, let's see some questions. How do you know the right side of your work?
So a pattern will tell you whether like a row 1 or row 2 is a right side. So when you're working with garter stitch, it's reversible. So one of the things that I will do is I will get these little removable stitch markers. They look like a safety pin. And if a pattern tells me that this is the right side, I will just take a safety pin and I'll add it to the right side. So that way I know whenever I'm looking at the yarn on my left-hand needle, if I'm looking at the side with the marker on it, I'm looking at the right side. I'm working a right side. Does that make sense? So if it's on my needles, if it's in my right hand, like this, that doesn't matter to me. It always matters what does it look like when it's in my left hand, because that's the row I'm getting ready to start. So if I'm looking at it and I see that there's no marker, then I know I'm on the wrong side. If I'm looking at it and I see there's a marker, then I know I'm on the right side. So as you're following a pattern, it will tell you what row is a right side or wrong side. Use the marker and save yourself some brain damage from trying to remember. Just mark it and then you'll know all the time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Lilani is saying it sounds like it's a good idea to count your stitches frequently.
As a beginner, yeah, I think so. I mean, and I will use stitch markers, like these little things. They actually rest on your needle. And if I have like a lot of stitches, I'll put them like between every 20 stitches just to make sure I have 20 stitches on there. But that's where like doing something like this is really good. So I think we recommended worsted weight yarn, you guys. And so if you guys were to cast on like, I think 15 stitches and knit a nice rectangle and then fold it in half and just stitch it together, you could have a coffee cozy. And so that's something really easy to do. And then you're only keeping track of those 15 stitches. You're giving yourself a chance to do muscle memory with your hands. And it's not like this huge project of a scarf, which I think is terrible for beginners because I think you guys need some instant gratification. So making a coffee cozy like that is a really great place to start. Or even like if you did this is a bulky weight yarn and I used a size 9 needle. I think this could be what is that called? A coaster. I'm like, what is that called? I'm like, you know what I'm talking about. Yes. A coaster. So like these could be like little coasters.
A mug rug is another cute name for it.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Rug for your coffee mug.
Yeah.
That's a great transition. You mentioned bulky yarn. So someone is asking, how do you go about choosing a yarn and needle size for beginners?
So a great place to start is when you pick up your, this thing has been ragged. Sorry, it's been in my bag. When you pick up a ball of yarn, all balls of yarn usually will have whatever the weight of the yarn is, and then they'll have a suggested needle or hook size. So if you're just doing something off the cuff on your own, that's a good place to start. The other thing is when you're dealing with a pattern, the patterns will tell you what yarn the designer used and the needles that they use to get what's called gauge. Now that's an entirely different class, and doing what we're doing, we aren't going to worry too much about gauge. But as you become more advanced and more experienced knitters, you'll be able to kind of be like, okay, that yarn, I'm going to use this size needles and whatnot. But a good place to start is look at the ball band, see what the recommended needle size is, or if you're following a pattern, try out the needle size recommended in the pattern to get the gauge of the pattern you're working on. You're on mute, hon.
Thank you. We have had a couple people ask, when is your next lesson? Are we going to be doing an advanced class? So we actually don't have anything on the calendar quite yet, but hopefully, you know, you guys are asking for it. So I'd love to get that set up with Marley. We'll talk separately and get something.
I would love that.
For that.
I would love that.
It was great. We had so much fun with you all. There are some additional questions that I don't think we're going to get to on the live, but we will try to get an answer to all of these unanswered questions via email. We'll follow up with you guys after. I think that's it. Marley, did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
No, I guess, I mean, I just want to tell everybody, thanks for doing this. I hope that you all become experienced knitters. Like you will love this. Just give yourself some time to get with it. If you need extra help, I know there's help online. I have a YouTube channel, so if you like the way I teach, you can check it out there. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Pinterest. I'm pretty much Marley Bird everywhere. So if you ever need anything, there I am. But yeah, I mean, just have fun with it. Just remember at the end of the day, y'all, it's just sticks and string. It's just sticks and string. And little kids can get this done. If you give yourself time, you can do this. We're just pulling string through a loop and we're using sticks to do it. Like,
someone earlier asked, I think they were half joking, but it is kind of a fun question. Can you knit with chopsticks, Marley?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they are just, they're just sticks. You can knit with pencils. You can knit with, anything that's straight, you could knit with it. Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I think that is a great question to end on. We do have a slide with our contact information. Marley, if you want to do a quick screen share as we end the class. So thank you again to Marley.
Hi, everybody.
Doing the class today. Thank you to our sponsor, I Like Knitting, and favecrafts.com. If you guys are looking for some additional patterns. Marley, do you want to switch this to the third slide? There we go.
There you go.
So this is Marley's contact information. Again, the URL to the magazine deal for ilikeknitting.com. My contact information. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us directly there. And we look forward to seeing you guys in our next class. Stay tuned for additional information on our more advanced classes later. So
cool.
Wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you, Marley.